Goedendag, good day. How are you lovely human being feeling at this moment? My name is Phylicia Joy Kloes, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how I experienced the second trimester of pregnancy. If you missed how I experienced the first trimester, make sure to check out last week's video. And without further ado, let's hop right into my experiences. As I mentioned last time, I started to feel less nauseous, and it actually made me more worried about whether or not baby was okay. And in the second trimester, I didn't have the nagging nauseousness at all. So there were a lot of times which I really didn't consider before we were expecting a baby, that in my mind I was worried about if everything was okay, because at first in the second trimester baby was too small for me to feel. In addition, I learned that baby was placed more to the front of my belly, and the placenta has been more forward focused rather than more inward focused, to where that also made me feel baby a little later on. In the second trimester, my energy came back, which was lovely. I didn't really have to take a nap after I got home from working with the kids. I could just eat my dinner, have a good time with Musa, and, get ready for the next work day. The energy that came back also allowed me to go for a run again, and that got me really excited, especially when I first started again. And I did, I believe, 2.6 kilometers the first time running again, after not running during the first trimester. However, during the run, everything was great. And after the run, like 2 hours later or so, my energy had a crash like crazy. I had to chill and relax in order for my energy to come back. So after experiencing that, I decided to not go more than 2 kilometers anymore. I didn't run that much in the second trimester, because I noticed that a lot of the workout clothes that I have that are not maternity workout clothes were not that comfortable. They were kind of getting too tight. And at first I didn't open up the borrowed clothing that I have, that is maternity proof, so to speak. However, I just started to not like wearing the things, like wearing the leggings, wearing the workout gear. And even at the gym, the machines that I was using, my belly was kind of getting in the way for me to comfortably do the exercises. And of course I could have just done the yoga mat thing at the gym, but then I thought, I have a yoga mat at home, I have some weights at home, so I might as well just do it at home. And I know that when you're pregnant, you're not supposed to do your frontal ab exercises. However, you can still do your side abs. Are those called obliques? Not sure. So I did do those. However, I decided to stop my gym membership and just focus on walking, at first running, and then later on walking at least once a week, and doing some exercises at home, which was not that much, to be honest. I didn't really have weird food cravings that I remember. There were just the normal meals that I would have. I did notice at around week 16 and 17 that I started to crave food more in more quantities. So I just listened to my body and instinctively ate a little bit more here and there. However, me instinctively eating more because I was craving more food, when I would eat that in one sitting, I was feeling extremely bloated after the meal, which was so uncomfortable. So it was honestly better to just eat more smaller meals throughout the day rather than having one big meal. So when I had the 14-week scan, there was on the scan a little blob of extra cells visible within my uterus. And that kind of worried me, even though they said that it can happen, it can go away by itself. But I never heard people talk about that they had like extra cells stacking up, and I was worried, like, what if these cells get in the way for baby, so baby doesn't move well enough, even though the doctors already told me baby will just make sure that that's pushed away when baby is bigger. And just to continue on my worries a little bit, those worries are gone because those extra cells are not visible on the scans anymore. At week 15, I remember I was driving in the car from work going home, and I felt this weird, like, twitch in my tummy, but I wasn't yet sure whether that was baby or not. Because everything is new, of course, so I really had no idea what that was. If that was just like a weird intestinal little bubble or some other twitch. I just wasn't sure. There was this weird situation because health-wise, I honestly cannot complain with my whole pregnancy. I am very blessed to be able to say that because everyone's pregnancy is differently, and I've heard a lot of different stories from a lot of different people. However, there was one time when I visited the museum with my friend, and out of nowhere, I felt kind of dizzy and lightheaded. So we're not supposed to have drinks in a museum, but I just had to drink something sugary, which thankfully I had with me. So I took a little sip of the sugary drink, and then one of the people working there came up to me and was like, "You cannot drink here." I was like, oh, I'm sorry, thank you for letting me know. But I started to not feel good, and I even got a little hot flash. So afterwards, after sitting, we continued and it was gone. But that was a little weird health thing. I'm not really sure what that was. My friend even asked me, "Did you eat?" And I did. I had water, I had enough in my tummy, but for some reason something wasn't right that moment. Something else I noticed more during the second trimester is the amount of burps. They increased like crazy. At around 18 weeks and 5 days, I'm very specific, I know, I knew that those bubbles that I was feeling was baby. And I could then feel more of a difference between the bubbles from my digestion and the bubbles from baby. So that was cool that I at least started to know more what those bubbles meant. However, sometimes when I would lay on the couch after work, for example, and I would put my hands on my tummy, I still couldn't really feel baby. And then when I asked my partner, he was more often capable of feeling baby. And I was just focused on like constantly feeling my tummy go up and down from my own breathing, so I couldn't focus on just feeling baby. I just felt like I wasn't that focused on baby. And I would also, when I would put my hands on my own tummy, feel my own heartbeat within my hands. I have that more often, but that's what I would be focusing on rather than feeling baby. But I did started to feel later on a soft feeling within my tummy, and it kind of felt like there's a finger going against my tummy on the inside. So I did start to feel that a little more, but that was later on, of course, in the second trimester. Something else that happened during the 18-week and 5 days mark is when I was laying on the couch and I saw my tummy twitch up and down. What I also started to feel more is feeling the practice contractions, especially after emptying my bladder on the toilet. And that sting would come out of nowhere, and then I would just kind of breathe through it, and then it would disappear again. These practice contractions are the uterus contracting and releasing to get bigger in order for it to fit the growing baby. And learning more about that helped me understand, okay, this is an okay feeling, don't worry, it's supposed to be like this. Something else that happened during my second trimester more, which might be TMI, but in the discharge, there was more often more like a pink kind of color in it. And that worried me because, as I mentioned before I was able to feel baby, I was thinking a lot about, is baby okay? Is everything okay? Is this going to be a miscarriage or not? And so I called my doctor and told her about it. So we did some tests, and everything is good with baby, thankfully. But sometimes the blood vessels can just snap because the bigger blood circulation, and you know, it disappeared. It wasn't regularly, but it just came, I think maybe 4 weeks in a row, once a week or so. So that made me a little worrisome. I do remember that sometimes certain foods would taste differently. Like, for example, one time we got these grapes, and as soon as I took a bite, they tasted really chemically. So that made me not want to eat it. And my partner at first didn't taste it until later on when he started to focus more on it. And he did taste it as well. So I think it's just a cool way for our body to just reject certain foods by enhancing certain tastes. I also started to notice that I needed more rest. So I work 4 days a week, and on the days off, I noticed that I would just go to bed, even though it was weekend, around 10, 11 at night, and then I would wake up around 10 or 11 the next morning. I really noticed that I started to really need to rest and use my sleep as much as I could possibly use it. I also noticed during this time that I needed to go use the bathroom at nighttime. Before, I didn't have this, but now I definitely had to. I usually just woke up once a night and went to the bathroom and then continued sleeping until the next morning. I also was noticing that my tummy was growing a lot. I wrote down a lot, and I think it's so funny to look at my notes now, because back then, in the second trimester, that was not a lot compared to what I have now. And the stretching skin on my growing tummy was itchy, so I used bamboo cream from the Gambia a lot, which is this yellow cream from a nut. I forget which nut. And I also used coconut oil, and I feel like I did that almost every night before going to bed, and that really helped to not itch so much. When I was 24 weeks and 5 days, I had a vaccination for the kinkhoest. You could take that, I believe, when you are 22 weeks pregnant. I don't remember exactly when I started to truly feel baby on a regular basis during the second trimester, because I didn't write that down, but I wrote down I feel baby kick clearly, and that I really liked being distracted by all the baby movement throughout the day. I did notice bending down was getting harder, so my tummy was growing, of course, so before I would just reach down while standing with my legs straight up, and now I had to do more like a frog pose, bending down. I started to get more out of breath more quickly. And because of this, also, I reduced the amount of workouts I did. I remember one time clicking on a YouTube video of Zumba, and the video was 30 minutes long. And after 15 minutes, I was so tired from movement and out of breath. And I thought, okay, never mind. Swimming, however, was really nice, as it kind of helps reduce some of the weight, and it's still a nice movement to do. I kept saying I wanted to do yoga, but truly I didn't really do that in the second trimester that much. And I also sometimes did exercises for the bekkenbodemspier, because I heard it's really important. So for example, sitting up really well, or standing up really straight, or doing some cat-cow poses, just to make sure that I was still working out those muscles and making sure that I have a really good posture. I really liked standing straight against the wall, especially when I would feel the pressure of my tummy a little more. When I focused more on these positions, I noticed less back pain. I mentioned that I didn't really have that many health issues, and I don't, and I didn't. However, I sometimes would get a little feeling in my back, especially when I took a long drive to another province to visit family, and I just kept going. I was in the car for, I think, an hour and a half without a break. And when I got home, my back was hurting, especially the right side of my hip, kind of. And the next day, that was still there. So that also made me ask, what can I do to improve that and to not have that again? So the exercises truly work. I honestly did notice that taking it easy at work was quite difficult, as a lot is still expected from us teachers, and I know myself, I still want a lot from the kids. I expect a lot from myself. However, I took extra 30-minute breaks during the day where I just lay down and relax, and that truly helped my tummy to get softer because at working days, my tummy was really hard quickly, which showed me I was just doing too much. I even called my doctor once when the hardness and the not nice sensation wouldn't go away even after resting at home. She mentioned, okay, your body is now telling you through the mirror of your tummy that you're doing too much. So either you work a day less or you figure out how to truly take it a notch down, which I chose that second one because I was asking too much of my body. I really had to lower the bar. And my body was sending energy and food to the baby, which was not just for myself anymore. So I truly had to learn to want to do less. Whenever things would happen in class, I would feel more triggered, I guess is the word I'm looking for. When I would lay down at work, I also did a meditation, usually about 10 minutes of breath work, which helped me relax. But I also started to incorporate these meditations more daily, and this was really nice to do as it helps me to get in a more relaxed state of mind and helps me prepare for labor later on. I also had to realize that my energy level was really differently compared to before my pregnancy, and I used to want to do the same things. However, it's differently when you have a baby growing inside you, so you cannot literally do the exact same things or in the exact same way like you did before. And that did take some getting used to be honest. I also noticed in bed especially, I would have these aches when I would turn too quickly, and my partner kept saying, you have to turn more slowly. However, the ADHD girl who thought I could still do everything the same way found that really hard to adjust to that. Right now it's easily because it's so much bigger, so I take it easier. However, before I would just turn too quick and then had the ache again. Is that called Braxton Hicks in English? I think so. It also sometimes happened when I did something unexpected out of nowhere. Laughing too loud out of nowhere or laughing too much out of nowhere. Or I even had it when I took off my shirt one time. Towards the end of my second trimester, I started to crave strawberries so much. And I could just eat a whole bucket of strawberries by myself and then feel bad that I only left like one or two for my partner. Strawberries were amazing. So I actually looked up what is in there, and there is folic acid as well as vitamin C in there. More vitamin C than there is, for example, in an orange. So that made me think, oh, okay, my body just really wants that. I ate so many strawberries. It's honestly insane. So when I was 24 weeks and 4 days pregnant, I started to notice these little skin pieces in my bra. However, these skin pieces were getting bigger and bigger, and that's when I realized, oh, it's not actually skin, it's milk production that is starting up. The colostrum was already happening, and I didn't ever hear people talk about that you could start leaking before baby is there. However, that started to happen within my bra and even in bed or on my shirt when I would not wear a bra. So that was interesting. Something that made me really comfortable was when I would hang on my partner and let my belly kind of flop down, so to speak. And something else I really liked was when my partner would stand behind me and lift my tummy a little bit, because this added weight is new to me and my body was getting kind of tired, especially after a long working day. So him lifting it up or hanging on him was so good. It was such a good feeling. I also noticed, TMI maybe, that pooping was getting more difficult, which is annoying because I feel like I'm really good at that. For me, before pregnancy, it was really normal to go like more than once a day 3 times a day. That happened quite often. And now during the second trimester, I noticed that I was constipated more often, or I would feel like I had to go, but it didn't really come out. So that took some getting used to. Making sure that I ate enough fiber, drank enough. During the first trimester, Musa actually said that he already saw the stripe on my tummy. However, during the second trimester, I started to see that stripe. It was faint. However, I could definitely see that there was a stripe there, which is so cool. The body is so cool. There is a human growing inside of me. I'm so grateful. This is so cool. Anywho, those are my notes about the second trimester. Thank you so much for watching up until this point. If you would like to talk about how you experienced the second trimester or pregnancy in general, or if you just would like to chat, leave a comment below, leave a thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe if you have not yet, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!